Good afternoon, and welcome to the Wednesday afternoon conference call with Trusts Unlimited. This is Jim George speaking. I'm the non-attorney spokesman and facilitator for Trusts Unlimited, and I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to this call this afternoon, particularly those of you calling in for the first time and those that will be listening to the replay over the next 24 to 48 hours. We like to move quickly through the call, bottom line the information for you. We know you're busy people. You have other things that you need to be doing, and so we're going to move quickly. We have a standard format. We spend a few minutes talking about the revaluation of the Iraqi dinar, which we continue to believe is the base currency for the reset of the other currencies that may be revaluing as well. We spend a few minutes talking about the program we put in place to assist you, and then we go to a brief Q&A. So let's go ahead and get started and talk a little bit about the situation as we see transpiring in Iraq today. First, by way of disclaimer, Trusts Unlimited is not the purveyor of these currencies. We are not advocating either the sale or the purchase of these currencies. However, as rather substantial currency holders ourselves, we're sharing with you the information that we think is relevant. The first relevant bit of information to our mind is our window for the reinstitution of the Iraqi dinar. Now, I've had a window for probably over a month, maybe going on 2 months now, of a window from 60 to 90 days, best case scenario, pushing it all the way to January 2020, worst case scenario. Now, even if we go to January 2020, at this point, we're only talking about 6 or 7 months, which is not a very long period of time, particularly since many of our clients have had currencies for nearly a decade. But actually, over the last 7 to 10 days, it looks as though things might be resolving themselves in Iraq. So the 60 to 90-day window is looking more possible as things develop. Of course, what's holding things up are several issues. First and foremost would be the Iranian aggression directly from Iran or through its proxies in the Middle East. We also have the delay in the formation of the new government in Iraq and the fact that 4 remaining ministerial seats remain unconfirmed. Now, there is a June 30th deadline for forming the new government, in which case the parliament could technically, theoretically, have a no-confidence vote, which means they'd have to start all over again with a new election and a new prime minister. I don't think that's going to happen. I think either the ministers will be appointed or they will put a proxy in there temporarily, or they will simply do what Iraq's done in so many cases. They'll just push the deadline back and try to resolve the issue as best that they can. The other major issue that is postponing the reinstitution of their currency is final passage of the Law of Financial Administration. Now, this is an important law. Inclusive in that law would be stopping for all time the currency auctions, completing the process of the deletion of the zeros, and then finally raising the rate in country, or the reinstitution increase in value of the dinar. Now, one interesting thing that's occurred is that the CBI, which had issued, in which the 8 regional banks were holding, are the $250, $500, and $1,000 notes, the lower denoms. But the CBI has announced that they will be issuing the $50 and $100 denoms. Now, this is important because at the current rate in Iraq, the current dinar rate, the $50 and $100 notes would be respectively worth approximately a nickel and then a dime on the $100 note. Now, you have to ask a question. Given the expense involved in printing $50 and $100 notes with all of the protections for counterfeit bills, with the sophisticated holographs and all of that information, why would the CBI go to that expense? Well, the only plausible explanation would be their anticipation of the reinstatement of the dinar and the increase in value of the dinar, which would in turn justify the cost for producing the $50 and $100 notes. The most important development probably is the recent bilateral agreements between the United States and Iraq. Now, the United States is very concerned about Iran and what's going on, so there had to be some pushback on Iran, but they also had to be sympathetic to Iraq's short-term dependence on Iranian natural gas and the fact that so many Iraqis are, in fact, Shia. Now, there was, through this bilateral agreement, the United States agreeing to substantial investments into the infrastructure of Iraq, the United States commitment to internal stability within Iraq. Despite the Iranian aggression and the United States military buildup in the area, the United States guaranteed that there would be no military excursions directly against Iraq that would against Iran that would originate from Iraq, which would explain why all of our resources and assets are basically flotillas in the Mediterranean, in the Arabian Sea, and even in the Straits of Hormuz. And lastly, the United States increase in military personnel in Iraq are there solely to neutralize the Iranian Revolutionary Guard militias and their undue influence on certain elected officials within Iraq. So all of these things seem to point to the fact that we could definitely see a revaluation prior to January 2020 in calendar year 2019. Now, the other issue, of course, is the recalibration necessary for the 2019 budget. But if all of these other issues fall into place, then that's going to be something that they're going to be able to resolve. One other issue is this. An Iraqi delegation is scheduled for an official visit with the United States Treasury here in the United States next week. So, again, the only plausible explanation for that is they are resolving last issues with regard to the currency reforms in Iraq and, of course, the reinstitution of their currency. So I don't want to belabor the point other than to say that the worst-case scenario, in our view, is January 2020. We're only talking 6 or 7 months. The best-case scenario would be the next 60 to 90 days. So that's good news, and what that also means is that those of you that have not as yet gotten your affairs in order prior to the revaluation of the dinar and these other currencies, or who may not understand exactly what that entails, Trusts Unlimited has put a turnkey program in place to assist you. It's a two-phased program. Phase 1 is pre-RV. Phase 2 is post-RV. Pre-RV involves the establishment of a package of pre-RV asset protection trusts with the assignment of your dinar and other currencies on paper to that trust product. Post-RV involves all of the products, services, and professional referrals that will be made available to you after the revaluation of the dinar and these other currencies. So let's start with Phase 1, which is, again, the establishment of your package of pre-RV asset protection trusts and the assignment of your currencies on paper to that trust product. Now, there are a lot of instruments out there that individuals can utilize to provide asset protection. For example, an individual can establish an LLC or a sub-S corporation. Now, they do provide some asset protection, but they primarily divide or separate business assets from personal assets. And, of course, these currencies are a personal asset. In addition, LLCs and sub-S corporations are government entities, and, of course, they do require filings and some disclosure. And there are courts that have ruled that if an LLC, which incidentally means limited liability company, or a sub-S corporation is owned in the majority by one person or a closely held group, those entities can be pierced for civil litigation. So they would be inappropriate for protecting these currencies. There are single trust products out there. The problem with a single trust, unlike the package that we offer, is that all of the assets are in one single trust or entity, meaning that if anything within that trust gets involved in litigation, Because the other assets are also owned by that one asset that's in litigation, everything would be vulnerable to litigation. So a single trust is not the best and most effective way to provide asset protection. But our package provides protection in a number of ways that these other entities do not, and I'm going to be explaining that in a little bit more detail in a second. In our opinion, our trust product is the best single domestic asset protection available. We've been offering this product for 8 years. Over that period of time, we've seen literally dozens of trusts and other entities come across our desk for review, and we've seen nothing that comes even close to our package. If we did or we had, we certainly would make changes to accommodate some other entity, but they simply do not exist. And I'm going to explain that again in a little bit more detail. There are a number of reasons why you need to get your trust product in place prior to the revaluation of these currencies, and I'm going to review them with you here. First, by establishing our trust package and assigning your pre-RV currencies to that package, you will be preserving your privacy and your anonymity. That's because assets held within our trust package are sealed, and the general public will have no knowledge of your net worth or your actual holdings. Second, by establishing this trust package, you will be able to successfully avoid personal IRS scrutiny. If you're holding these currencies in direct title when they revalue, the IRS computers will most likely spit out an audit. And with the potential magnitude of this revaluation relative to your prior year's earnings, you're probably looking at a full-blown 6-year audit. Such an audit would be time-consuming, it would be frustrating, and frankly, it would probably cost you more than our asset protection trust package. On the other hand, if your asset protection trust package is in place and your pre-RV currencies are assigned to that trust package, you have successfully transferred the taxable event of the revaluation from yourself personally to the trust. Now, this is important for a couple of reasons. First, there's only a 10% chance of an audit if the taxable event of this revaluation were to occur within our trust package. But second, and most importantly, even if the IRS determines to audit your trust, they cannot do a 6-year audit. Why? Because the only taxable event within the trust will be the revaluation itself. The third reason you'd want to establish this trust package is because included in the package is a special gifting subtrust that we have created. Philanthropic gifting can always be done on a tax-preferred basis, either pre- or post-RV, and you're probably going to want to postpone philanthropic gifting until after the revaluation because you're going to need the write-off. But if you're gifting to family and friends, the only way you can avoid the federal gift tax, and it's 40%, is by gifting currencies prior to the revaluation. Now, if you're gifting to individuals that you have no problem giving them the currency to exchange for themselves, or giving them the lump sum in U.S. dollars after you have negotiated the exchange, that can be accomplished outside of a trust with a standard gift letter. But if you are hesitant for any reason to gift to these individuals the U.S. dollar lump sum, then you can gift to them through our gift subtrust. By gifting through this subtrust, their U.S. dollars would be protected along with yours. The language of this gift subtrust allows you to gift up to a currency or currencies, meaning you can gift these individuals the exact U.S. dollar amount that you had in mind, irrespective of the exchange rate. But most importantly, because you're gifting through the trust, you will have direct control of those U.S. dollars, which you can then manage, invest, and distribute to these individuals as you deem appropriate. The fourth reason you'd want to establish this trust package is because it's been structured in such a way as to allow your estate to bypass the cost and delay of probate and the federal estate tax. I'll give you 2 quick scenarios. Scenario number 1, you purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. The day after that, those currencies revalue for $25 million. The day after that, you pass away, leaving your heirs in a state of $25 million. Now that estate must go through probate, a process that ordinarily can take anywhere from 6 to 18 months. But probate is a public disclosure process, meaning that the general public will be aware of the size of your estate, who your heirs are, and how much they each stand to inherit. So if anyone feels they have a legitimate claim against you, your estate, or your heirs, they can simply file that claim with the probate court. And that could tie the estate up for years, and in some cases even decades. And your heirs will have either very limited access or no access at all to their respective inheritance until the probate process is completed. Then there's something called the federal estate tax, the tax that the federal government will assess in order for that estate to be transferred to heirs. Under current law, approximately $10 million of that $25 million estate would bypass any federal estate tax, but the balance could be taxed as much as 55%. This is unacceptable. Scenario number 2, you purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. The day after that, you assign those currencies on paper to our asset protection trust package. The day after that, those currencies revalue for $25 million. The day after that, you pass away, leaving your heirs that same estate of $25 million, but this time protected in our asset protection trust package. As a result, there will be no probate, there will be no public disclosure of your estate, your heirs will have immediate access to their respective inheritance, and the federal estate tax will be zero, saving your heirs as much as 55% of their inheritance. The fifth reason you'd want to establish this asset protection trust package is for some very specific asset protection benefits. One pre-RV, one post-RV. Pre-RV, this trust package will allow you to circumvent something called the Uniform Fraudulent Transfer Act. What does that mean? Under our system of civil procedure, you can only be sued for what you own in direct title or the value of property at the time you transfer it out of title to an entity like our trust package. So let's take the previous example from before. You purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. You transfer those currencies to our trust package. They subsequently revalue for $25 million. You begin to live a lifestyle more reflective of your newfound wealth, and a couple of years down the road, someone sees that you're living rather comfortably and decides for whatever reason that they're going to sue you. Well, this prospective plaintiff has a couple of problems. First, he or she better have a very strong case and very deep pockets, because this trust is structured in such a way as to make it extremely expensive and extremely time-consuming to pursue civil litigation. But second, and most importantly, once the prospective plaintiff learns that pursuant to the Uniform Fraudulent Transfer Act, the only thing they could ever win by way of a civil award would be $5,000, the value of the property at the time you transferred it to the trust, and none of the post-RV value of $25 million, there will be no lawsuit. Post-RV, there's an asset protection benefit I like to refer to as limited liability stop-loss. This protects you from future bad acts after you have acquired this wealth. This protection is accomplished through something called segregation of assets, and this is how it would work. Once again, we'll use the same example. You purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000, transfer the currencies to our trust. They subsequently revalue for $25 million. Now that you have $25 million in trust, you decide to make some purchases. So you purchase a larger primary residence, a vacation home, perhaps a half a dozen rental properties for tax write-off and additional cash flow, a couple of cars, a boat, and let's say an RV. But as you purchase these items, you place each of them in their own separate subtrust to be managed by your master trust. Now, why is this important from an asset protection standpoint? Well, let's say one day you're driving one of your new cars, you have an accident, the accident is clearly your fault, and tragically someone is seriously injured or even killed. Well, the family of the victim is going to want to sue you. But remember, civil suits are about monetary awards, and you don't legally own anything. So the plaintiffs would be left to sue the owner of the car that you were driving. Well, who owns that car? One of your subtrusts of which you're merely the beneficiary. And what's in that subtrust? Merely that one car and the car insurance policy. In that scenario, the car insurance carrier will negotiate an out-of-court settlement with the plaintiffs. You will not be involved in those rather unpleasant negotiations. The car insurance carrier will repair or replace your car, making you whole. And this is important from an asset protection standpoint. All of your other assets are safely protected from the litigation because they're in separate subtrusts. Now, why are they protected? They're protected because under the law, those separate subtrusts are separate legal entities, and the plaintiffs would have no standing to pursue what in essence is a stranger, a separate legal entity. So this trust package works very much the way a barge would work, where all of the valuable cargo is stored in a series of small compartments. Why? In the event that any compartment is ever breached, the only potential loss would be the cargo in that one compartment. The cargo in the other compartments is safe and secure due to the firewalls, and the barge will never sink. Now again, these benefits are lost to you if you do not establish your package of asset protection trusts prior to the revaluation of these currencies. Now there is one other benefit, and it's this. If you are in fact a holder of one of our pre-RV asset protection trust packages, then you will be eligible to participate in all the products, services, and professional referrals that will be made available to you after the revaluation of the dinar and these other currencies. I'll just make mention of one here today. Trusts Unlimited will be sponsoring a post-RV seminar to be held in Disney World, Florida, approximately 30 days after the revaluation of the Iraqi dinar. Present at that seminar will, of course, be the staff of Trusts Unlimited to assist you with the management and funding of your trust packages. Many of our existing clients have expressed desires to establish scholarship funds, foundational trusts, special needs trusts, charitable remainder trusts, and even the more complicated 501c3 nonprofit and offshore trusts. And the proper way to fund those entities is from the direct transfer of funds from this asset protection trust package to those newly established entities. We'll also have our tax specialists there. Our offshore specialists will show you that by establishing offshore title of certain assets, you can substantially reduce and in some cases eliminate future taxes on the reinvestment of the net proceeds from the revaluation itself. We'll also have our independent fee-based wealth managers there as well. You're going to want to reposition assets after the revaluation of these currencies for a number of reasons. First, we know statistically that 95% of all windfalls, however large and from whatever source, are largely lost within 3 to 5 years due to inexperience, mismanagement, and fraud. We also know that under the new G20 bank bail-in provisions, the failure of banks in the future will no longer be made whole through the taxing authority of the respective governments, but first and foremost by the confiscation of funds at the accounts at those banks. So you're going to want to get money out of the banks and at work in other markets. Lastly, the general global shift from fiat-based to commodity-based Basel III compliant currencies in and of itself is going to create extremely volatile financial markets, and you're going to want a substantial amount of your net worth invested in tangible assets to avoid those losses. Now, our trust package is initially a package of 10 trusts consisting of one master trust that will hold your assigned currencies pre-RV, will hold your financial assets like bank accounts and investment accounts post-RV, and manage the other sub-trusts. One optional gift sub-trust if you intend on gifting to family and friends and you want to manage that money post-RV. which subtrust can be converted to a standard subtrust at any time, and 8 additional subtrusts that will hold physical assets like homes, cars, boats, etc. Now, this was the simplification of a rather sophisticated trust package that we've utilized in the past for our more affluent clients, a package that had an initial cost of anywhere from $6,000 to $10,000. But when we decided to work with denarians, we knew that price tag was just going to be unaffordable for many. So by basically simplifying and back-end loading this trust package, we've been able to reduce the cost to $3,000. In addition, there are several ways you can pay for that. If you pay us up front, we'll discount the price further to $2,500, saving you an additional $500. If that's not possible, we do have a deferred payment arrangement. You'd make an initial payment of $525, which sum would basically offset our out-of-pocket costs just to produce and deliver your trust. The balance of the $3,000 would then be paid in $100 monthly installments. We will charge no interest. The only proviso is once the revaluation of the Iraqi dinar occurs, any unpaid balance would need to be paid within 30 days. Now, with this approach, anyone that has currencies and understands the need for getting their trust enforced prior to the revaluation of these currencies should be in a position to afford to do so. One other suggestion, we do accept credit cards. If you pay us up front with a credit card, not only will you get the $500 discount, but the minimum payment on your card would be substantially less than the $100 a month you'd be paying under our deferred payment arrangement. But we will work with you in whatever method works best for you. Our objective is to help you get your affairs in order and your trust in place prior to the revaluation of these currencies for all of the reasons stated here. Now, I will be going to a Q&A in just a moment, but for the benefit of our newer callers, I'd like to tell you just a little bit about Trusts Unlimited and why you may want to seriously consider allowing us to assist you. Our trust product was authored by our attorney, Robert Bly. He's been a practicing attorney for over 40 years, specializing in the areas of estate planning, asset protection, and offshore planning. I myself hold degrees in political science, macroeconomics, and finance. I've worked in these areas for over 38 years, and I, along with my clients, were personally involved in the reinstatement of the Kuwaiti dinar in the early 90s. So between the two of us, Robert Bly and I have over 78 years' experience working precisely in these areas, and I frankly know of no firm that can make that claim. Now, Bob and I have been working together for about a decade in the areas of estate planning, asset protection, and offshore planning, and it has been disheartening from time to time to see people walk away from sound estate planning and trust creation because of the mistaken belief that by doing so they have somehow lost control of their assets and their affairs. In point of fact, in our system of civil procedure, it's when you hold assets in direct title that you can lose control of them. And invariably, it's at precisely those times in life that you need and want control. If you've lived for any length of time, you've either experienced in your own life or through friends and family things like unexpected divorce, permanent incapacitation, the onset of dementia, premature death and prolonged and complicated probate processes. Then there are investment losses, business losses, and even bankruptcies. The number 2 loss of wealth, courtesy of the information age, is now identity theft. But the number 1 loss of personal wealth remains confiscation through civil litigation. Anything you own in direct title can be taken from you. So in point of fact, under our system of civil procedure, the only way that you can manage, protect, and control everything at all times and in all circumstances is through the establishment of a package of irrevocable trusts, and particularly if you have an asset like these currencies that you're anticipating a substantial increase in value. And we at Trusts Unlimited will do everything we can to help you accomplish your personal and financial objectives, both pre- and post-RV as we understand them. So again, thanks for listening to the call. I'm going to open the Q&A in a moment. If you'd be interested in getting our initial package, I suggest you have a pen and paper ready. You're under absolutely no obligation whatsoever by getting our initial package, even though it includes everything you need should you decide to apply for one of our trust packages. You can review the information, contact us by phone or email if you have questions. We'll be happy to answer your questions, and there will be no consultation fee. So I'm going to open the Q&A. When I do, 2 quick rules. We take no service calls on this Q&A. Existing clients, again, can contact us by phone or email if they have questions. This Q&A is reserved for individuals that have questions about Trusts Unlimited services. And second, for obvious reasons, your name and number must be on the screen to participate in the Q&A. So I'm going to go ahead and open up right now. And while I'm waiting for any questions, I'd like to give you our contact information. You can go to our website, which is trusts with an S, unlimitedllc.com. Excuse me. Our email address is trust with an S, unlimitedllc@gmail.com. Our phone service is 307-274-4122. If you'd like to listen to a recent conference call playback, or if you'd be kind enough to refer us to someone that might be interested in our services, you can either go to YouTube and go to Trusts Unlimited, or you can go to IQD calls and go to Trusts Unlimited, or you can simply dial the same number that you dialed for this live call this afternoon, with the exception of the last digit. Rather than dialing 4, you'll dial a 3 and then use the same access code, which is 739-394#. If you'd like to be included on our email list, you go to our website, go to the bottom, enter your name and email address where indicated. You should be on our email list within 24 hours. Bear in mind that we only send emails out very periodically, pre-RV, but post-RV, emails are certainly going to be going out weekly and in some cases even daily. So let's go to the Q&A. Our first caller here is area code 347. That's 347. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's Praveen from North. I have a question. I was hearing that all the ministers have been, all the remaining ministers have been, cabinet ministers have been approved. Is that the case?
No, I believe that all of the ministers have been nominated, but not yet officially confirmed. Now, if that's changed, it's changed in the last 24 hours. But because you asked that question, I will, of course, investigate that immediately. But my understanding is that Mahdi has given them 4 nominees, and he is willing for any or all of them to be temporary. In other words, let's just get someone in position so that we can form the government, and if you still have a problem, we can replace them. So that's my understanding. But, of course, I will look into that as soon as this call is completed.
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir. Okay, our next caller is area code 312. That's 312. Let me take a wild guess. That's Les.
Yes, it is. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Jim.
Yes, sir. What can I do for you?
I heard from TT. TT says there was an article that came out, which your first caller mentioned, about the people being in place. And the article read that they had 4 people. They have not revealed their names for those 4 positions, the Interior, Education, and whatever the other 2 were. And then also TT said that what was that? Was it over the weekend or was it on Monday? Something with 50, 100, 250, and 500 denominations were out, also in Iraq. And there was also something else about them distributing $100,000 to all the other, I guess, low-income families in the country.
Okay, I've heard none of that. I'm not saying it's. Let's take them one at a time. With regard to the ministers, what I suspect has happened is he's made nominations, and he's willing for them to be only interim just to get everything done prior to the deadline of June 30th. With regard to the release of the lower denoms, my understanding was that 250, 500,000 were in the possession of the banks but not to be distributed, but that the CBI has released to the banks the 50s and the 100s. And as I said, they're expensive to produce. Why would you produce a 50 and 100 worth respectively a nickel and a dime unless the only plausible explanation would be that they anticipate a reinstitution, hopefully prior to January. But even if they're going to push it to January, they're going to want the banks in possession of those. With regard to the 100,000, in my opinion, that's complete and total crap. But I will. You brought it up, so I'm going to check it out. I think I would have heard about that from the people that I have that are on the street in Iraq. But I will. You know, if it's happened in the last 24 hours based on the people that I've spoken to. So I will check that out. What I think is really important, though, is the fact that a delegation from the CBI is coming to the United States to meet with our Treasury Department. To me, that's an I-dotting, T-crossing meeting. So that's why I said I'm beginning to feel a little better about the possibility of a reinstitution in the next 60 to 90 days.
Well, that joker that's in charge now, is it Mahdi?
Yeah.
That's the guy.
Well, no, Alawi is the governor of the CBI. Mahdi is the prime minister.
Okay. Mahdi was the one, I believe. TT said that was, he had promised to have everything finished by or before June 1st and said that the people would have something, which means it would be finished before June. And June 1st is Saturday. Well, and of course, if it doesn't happen, well, you know, that's the way things are done in Iraq. The important number is that he has until June 30th to form the government, or then he could theoretically be exposed to a non-confidence vote. So I don't think that's going to happen. And again, what he may do, the fact that he may present people by June 1st doesn't mean they'll be confirmed. Nominations is not the same thing as confirmation. That's why I said the article didn't say nominated. They didn't say they had nominations. The article didn't read that.
Yeah, well, I'll have to check that. I will have to check that out when we get off. What I suspect is that the Parliament may have preemptively agreed that, look, we will accept whoever you present on the condition that they be interim, and if we don't like them, then you better find someone we do approve by June 30th. So by putting somebody in now, the government's functioning, and with the understanding that if they're not acceptable for formal confirmation by June 30th, that Mahdi's going to have to come with someone else, and if he doesn't, theoretically, they could vote no confidence and kick him out.
Okay.
So what's he going to do? If they say to you, you got till June 30th, we're going to pink slip you, obviously he's going to find someone that they would accept on a permanent basis. It's the typical yin and yang that goes on in Iraq.
Well, they did say those notes are out. They are on the street.
Well, that may be true. What I heard 24 hours ago was that the 8 regional banks were in possession of the 50s and 100s. I wasn't specifically told that they were on the street. They may or may not be. But, again, my point is for the CBI to go to the expense of issuing them can only be – the only plausible explanation is they're anticipating a reinstitution in the not-too-distant future. And that's good news.
All right. Well, great. Thanks. I'm going to get TT to call in. She's got all the info.
Okay.
Thanks, Jim. Have a good day, man.
You don't want to do that.
All right, buddy. All right. Have a good day.
Take care.
Bye-bye. All right, bye.
Well, this is our last caller for this afternoon. Again, I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to call and listen to what we've had to say. If you're a new caller and you're interested in what we've said, a lot more information is available in our no-obligation package. We're happy to send it to you upon request. Again, it's a no-obligation package, although it does include everything you need if you should decide to proceed with the establishment of your package of trusts pre-RV. You can review everything. Contact us if you have any questions. We'll be happy to assist you. There will be no consultation fee. Our next call is scheduled for next Wednesday. Certainly, if something of a dramatic nature were to happen between now and then, we will try to get an emergency email out and schedule an emergency conference call. Failing that, we will be back next Wednesday, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. So have a great week, everyone. Bye-bye.